Hi, this is Paul Sanneman, and I'm with Contractor Staffing Source. I've started this podcast called Business Success Tips, and I have as my guest Eric Rios with the plumbing coach, the plumbing business coach, right? That's
Yes, that's
assuming
correct.
plumbing people actually have a business. That's a big inference on your part, right? Um,
Yes.
so I've interviewed a lot of coaches, Eric, and everybody has something special, like a different take on stuff. And my goal of this podcast is to find out what makes you special and what nuggets or whatever you can give the audience that they didn't know before this and can magically change their lives. You up for that?
Oh, 100%. Let's do this.
Okay, cool. So, first thing, tell me a little about yourself, how you got into it, give your background. So we have to establish your credibility. So that's what we're going to do right now.
All right, let's do it. All right. So I've been in the trade since I was 18 years old. So that goes back.
You don't have to tell me that.
I've been in the trades for 35 years, specifically plumbing for 27 years. I got into that just because I needed a job. It wasn't because that's what I wanted to do, as I needed a job, and I ended up being really good at it. So, but I decided years ago, back in 2008, that I got tired of hearing these very words. We're going to have to lay you off. We're going to have to lay you off. Times are getting slow. And it's that fear of not ever knowing what your life's going to be like. And I remember when I was 18 years old, I went to school for welding. I got my first job making $5 an hour as a welder, working for a company out of California. And I remember this, that I was laid off 14 times in 4 years as a welder.
Wow, that's some kind of record, I'm sure.
Dude, it just sucked. Let me tell you that. It just sucked. Right. But it was being the low man on the totem pole, being a young kid, in the oil field industry. It was just the way the industry worked.
Right.
But as I grew in myself and as a plumber, I realized that I want to control my own future. And I got so tired of hearing those words, I decided I'm going to get a license. So I got my first master plumbing license. Well, I got my first journeyman plumbing license in the year 2000. So that goes a long time ago, 23 years ago. Then I got my St. Louis County license, my St. Louis City license, because where I live, our licenses are municipality driven or county driven versus a statewide license.
That sounds like that's a really smart idea, but that's my opinion.
Well, I don't know. I mean, but like when I got my master license here in St. Louis County, it took 20,000 hours of working in the field in order for you to be able to apply for your license. And then that license is the 9-hour test. Then I was able to get that license. Then I was able to get my St. Louis City license, then my St. Charles County license, all 3 different tests. So you're talking about 24 hours just in testing for those 3 different licenses. Wow. And I got my master mechanical license on top of that. So because we started doing plumbing and heating and cooling, but I realized that heating and cooling really wasn't what I wanted to do. I wanted to focus on what I was really good at, and that was building a plumbing company. And that's why I did
building a plumbing. So, and give me a 3-step process how one builds a plumbing company.
Oh, simple. So I think the biggest thing in building plumbing is, first of all, know your numbers. Start from where you want to be, not from where you are at the moment. Most people, when they start a business, I tell them all the time, if you're starting out by yourself, don't price your business based on where you are. Price it on where you want to be. Let's say you want to have 10 trucks. That's your goal, is to have 10 trucks in the field. That means you're going to have 10 trucks, 5 people in the office potentially, with an accountant, with this and with this and with that. We want to build your business from backwards, all the way back to where you are right now, and price it that way, because it's a hell of a lot harder to raise your prices every day, every week, every month, versus just set it where you need it to be based on where you want to go.
Well, all I remember, plumbers are expensive. Like they're $125 an hour, aren't they? They're not cheap.
Well, that's that's not expensive. It's relative. So if you really, we could talk about pricing. That's really easy to talk about pricing. Plumbers are not expensive, comparatively speaking, when you think of they protect the health of the nation. They're protecting the health of the nation. They're going out to a client's house. It's not like someone coming to your business, to your house, to your home, to your brick and mortar place where you can have much lower cost. You have a lot more overhead and a lot more efficiency issues in those things. So going back to your first question, is 3 things. Your first thing is get your numbers right when you start your business. That's going to be the number 1 thing. Then get your marketing right. So if you were to go into business today, I want to make sure you can be making money day 1.
Okay.
Don't start that business unless you know what marketing you're going to do, and if it isn't going to work. What I do is I've spent millions of dollars on advertising over the years of my own money, figuring out what didn't work as much as what did work. So we get, number 2 would be get your marketing right at the start. Number 3 is partner with either an accountant or a CPA to help you manage your numbers on a monthly basis. Set the budget and figure out how am I keeping track with my budget, where I'm going, what I'm doing. It can be a small fee. I used to pay a guy $500 a month to reconcile my books every single month for my businesses. But the best part is we looked at the budget every single month. He was that one person who helped me make sure I stayed on track with my business goals.
You need to know your numbers. Now, interesting, Eric, I've heard that this is maybe urban myth, but you judge a society by whether it's Rome or England or any society in the world by how well they get rid of their waste.
Yes, because if you can't get rid of the waste, I promise you it's a shitty situation.
Absolutely. And you look at society, one of the definitions of a society is they have a decent, waste management system, or they can't be a society. So it's huge.
Right. Because if you don't have the ability to move it away from where you are, obviously it's going to be pretty bad. I mean, we have gone to clients' homes over the years. So we've worked in probably 24,000 homes in our local area over the years. And I sent a technician out to a house one day. He called me, he says, dude, I'm not going to do this work. I'm like, well, tell me about it. They had a crawl space in this house. They had their drains opened up underneath their house from their toilet. And they just kept doing this probably for months and months and months. So underneath the house, the waste was not going anywhere except for
it was a cesspool. They were living on top of a cesspool, right?
Dude, disgusting. And you're working in 24,000 homes. There's always a story to tell. There's always something that you've seen that just makes you question people's sanity. It really does.
Okay. So, what do you think you offer people? If you were going to talk to a plumbing company and said, okay, this is what I know that you don't. I mean, one of the things you brought up, which I tell clients all the time over time, is that you're a marketing company that performs a good or service, and you use a good or service to fund your marketing. Unfortunately, most contractors don't really get that concept.
Well, they don't. They don't understand. First of all, what I bring to the table is I've done what you want to do. That is the number one thing. I've spent millions of dollars of my own money, not somebody else's money, to get where I've gone and build and sell to plumbing companies specifically. That is the number one thing I bring to the table, is the ability to help you navigate from where you are to where you want to be. And I'm going to coach you in those different areas of your business. I was just talking to a guy the other day about just how to answer the telephone. It's so easy, but yet so many people don't do the simple things when it comes to just how you answer your phone. Because how you answer your phone determines the success of the relationship you're about to build for your technicians when they
okay, so give me a good phone answer and a bad phone answer, Eric.
Okay. This is a real one I just had the other day. I was talking to a guy the other day. I said, how do you answer your phone? This is Jeremy. And I said to him, you're fired right there. I just fired you right there on the spot. I said, you don't answer your phone that way. We always want to answer, thank you for calling Craftsman Plumbing. This is Eric. How may I help you? We always want to answer with thanking them, first of all, for calling. That's the number one thing. We want to thank them for taking the time to call, because they could have called anybody else. But we always want to focus on when they start sharing their problem. Oh, I've got this big problem. Oh my God, it's so bad. Well, Ms. Jones, I'm so sorry that you've got this problem, but you definitely called the right place. We always show empathy, and we always show assurance. We go from thanking them to showing empathy and assurance that they've called the right people who can handle their problem. That's the number one. Those are the number three things I teach when it comes to answering your phone.
Okay, so that seems like a big deal. Now, what about, I have some issues lots of times with plumbers. I've worked with plumbing companies in the past where you never get a second chance at a first impression, right?
Yes. Well, I would say there's two impressions. There's two impressions you make on every single client that you have an experience with. The first impression that you make is going to be the one where they make the decision to do business with you. This one is going to be, you have done everything you can to make a great impression from the time you answered your phone, time you pulled up into their driveway, time you walked up to their door, walked into that house. But that's not the important impression to me. The important impression to me is the one you leave them with when you walk out that door. That determines, are they going to call you back? Because in business, the number one thing we want them to do is become a repeat buyer over and over. Because if you look at acquisition cost to buy a customer, it may cost you $200 just to get that one client. But it's really inexpensive to just keep that client. And you keep that client by providing exemplary service where it's always 5-star rated, all because of your attitude, your personality, and the fact that you understood how to connect with that client.
So how do you teach someone, let's say you've got a plumber guy, and let's say he was not the world's most sociable, interactive human being. I'm just saying, because I don't think that's why he became a plumber, whatever reason, right? So he became a plumber for the money. I'm going to be very stereotypical. I mean, we all know the butt crack plumber. I mean, there's images of that everywhere, right?
Just say no to crack.
That's right. So what happens is this guy shows up, it's like we all have this image of a plumber, and it's probably not very good. It's like used car salesman. So how do you fix that? And how do you leave with the good impression so they'll call you back? What do you need to do?
Well, I think the biggest thing is we want to teach them, first of all, sales psychology. We want to teach them how to understand what you're about to do. And the number one thing we teach plumbers is you're not a salesperson when you go into that client's house. We always heard for years and years and years that, well, I'm not a salesperson. I'm like, you're absolutely right, but you are an educator is what you are. Your job is to educate that client on best practices for their home or for their business. And that is the number one priority. But when we have them walk up to a door, we want them to have a shirt that's tucked in. We want them to look professional. We want them to smile. We want them to try to connect through, maybe it was a car in the driveway, some landscaping, their house. Oh, Mitchell, I love this house. This is such a beautiful house. When you walk in the door, do you see kids on the walls? Holy cow, you got a lot of kids. I mean, the key is creating a connection and creating some kind of common ground. You think of the book, How to Win Friends and Influence People. It's always about talk about something that you know they like. If they've got a really special car in that driveway, you know they like it. If their house looks really manicured, you know they really like what they have. Their
Right.
landscaping or whatever it is. So we teach the connection, just how to connect. And how do we do it? Through simple role play. We play the role play of, I'm the customer, you're the technician. Now, I've had technicians who would shake. They would literally shake in absolute fear just having this conversation. And it was a lot of fun getting them to come out of that bubble. But once you get them out of the bubble and you help them understand that you're not a salesperson, you're an educator. So let me give you an example of an educator. Is I walked into their home and went into their master bathroom, and I saw that they got this big giant bathtub. And what we found in working in 24,000 homes is that we would ask the customer, hey, do you ever use this tub? No, we never use that tub. Well, why not? Why don't you use that tub? They said, well, we just don't get enough hot water. Well, Miss Jones, have you ever thought about putting in a tankless water heater? I didn't sell them anything. All I did was educated them on a better option. All we do is we teach them how to find better options and become an educator of services and things that you can provide. And all of a sudden, just like that, they feel more comfortable that they're not trying to sell something, because when you educate them, you give the customer the chance to make the choice, not you forcing a choice down their throat.
Eric, when I was coaching, I say, what are the three most important things in sales, right? And I go, relationship. And guess what the second one is, Eric?
Relationship.
And the third one is
it's relationship.
It's sort of like real estate, location, right? So, and if you're a marketing company that is creating relationships with people that need your services, you're going to kill it. But if you're 100%. A good technician that doesn't care about relationships, you're probably going to get laid off like you were before, right?
Right. You are going to get laid off. See, even more importantly in business is that if you don't care, I hear people tell me all the time, I don't like people. I'm like, well, you shouldn't go into business. If you don't like people, you should never go into business, because that's the worst thing you could ever say, because nobody pays your bills except for the people you do business with. That you don't pay your employees. Nobody pays your employees except for that client. They're who pays your bills. Mm-hmm. The relationship is the number one priority that everybody should be focused on, because we look for we want the callback, we want the referral, we want the continued business, we want their families, we want their friends, because this is where we have a 90% closure rate on closing sales. If we want to go do work because they know you, they like you, and they trust you, all because you smiled and you were nice to them, you were kind to them. And if they sit there talking to you over your head the whole time while you're working, just have a conversation versus, oh my God, can you just leave me alone? We hear the shit all the time. I can't stand it because they just want to stand over you. I'm like, I learned to just make it a fun thing for that client and for myself while they would talk to me. And I just kept working and working and working. It's about the relationship.
Especially with a plumber or even a remodeling contractor, you are going into their most intimate space, right? Their bedroom, their bathroom, Absolutely. Their kitchen. And it's sort of like forced intimacy, right? I mean, yes. And they're going, oh my God, they're going to see all the crap I have in my, kitchen sink or my bathroom sink. I don't want anybody to see, like my wife always says, as soon as I get my house cleaned up, we can get a housekeeper, right? So they're afraid that people are going to see them, naked, but they're not really naked, but you know what I mean? Like the real them and that kind of thing.
In their worst, in their mind, it's in their worst.
Right. So how do you deal with that? Some guy goes, into the bathroom where he needs to go to, and it's a mess. I mean, leave us face it, a lot of us do not have the world's cleanest bathroom. So how do you train people to like get around that stuff, like not make any comments and just be okay with it?
Well, it's pretty simple. So what I do is, because typically what's going to happen right away is they're going to say, I'm so sorry, please forgive my mess in the house. It's so messy. And the first thing I say every single time, I say, look, that's totally okay. You live here. I expect this because you live in your house. You're not trying to get it cleaned up. You live here, you had an emergency, we came out to your house, no big deal. It's totally okay. First thing I always say is, you live here, it's normal for people's houses to not always be perfect.
So
but I also have the same house that where it's a perfectly clean house, and they'll be like, oh my God, I'm so sorry, just because they have a little bit of dust.
Right.
I'm saying it's totally good.
So how do you train people? And this would be for even people that are, you know, carpenters or anybody in the trades. Tradespeople are not noted for their psychological skills, just to be fair, right?
Correct.
So whether you're a plumber, electrician, or you're going in a house, you did not sign up to be a plumber because you're good at relationships. I mean,
No.
you're good at, you like to fix stuff, or you're good at, you know, sawing or plumbing or something. So how do you train people that didn't get in for that reason to be good at it?
Well, the way I do it through role play. Is first of all, I want to identify, are they the right person to be going out to a job? We've had people who worked for us who we would not send out to jobs except if they were just going to go physically do work. They were not there to communicate, interact. They just were never going to be the right fit. So the key, first of all, is to make sure you have the right person in the place who is willing to learn.
We have assessments we use. How do you tell?
We'll say that one more time.
We have assessments we use before we hire people to figure out the right person for the job and that kind of thing. But how do you tell, or your clients, how to know if the person's the right person? How do I tell?
How do I tell my client that they're the right person?
How do you tell your client that their employees are the right or wrong person? How do you make that judgment call for a client, for one of your clients?
Well, we make the judgment call based on the need, what they're going out there for, what they're doing or what they're not doing. Because you could have a guy who works strictly construction. They are a construction employee. They are not a service employee that you're going to be sending them into homes all day long, every single day. We're letting that client know the person we're sending to your home is going to be kind. They're going to be nice. They're going to be professional. They're going to have a good attitude. They're going to make it a positive experience for you. I don't want to send somebody there who I know is not going to be able to do that. Some people, no matter what you do, they're just not going to be trainable because they don't want to be trainable in regards to doing those things.
So how do you tell the difference between a service person and a just plain technician? You know, like, how are you going to tell the difference? Well, what do you look for in both?
So what I look for is, can you have a simple conversation? The first thing I look for every single time if I do an interview, I'm looking for, can you have a simple conversation with me? Just from a professional to a professional, a tradesman to a tradesman, can you have a conversation? I'm looking for what you look like, how you represent yourself when you came to an interview. I'm looking for all the different things. Then I'm looking for the one thing is, are you willing to do something different? Are you willing to be different? And are you willing to learn and be trained in how to be better at what you do? Those are the number one things I look for when I talk to a
what questions do you ask? How do you tell that, Eric?
How do I tell that?
How do you tell I'm interviewing with you, and how do you know that I'm going to be a service kind of person?
You don't really know until you put them in the situation. Everybody's going to be different. I mean, I know that there are assessments and I know you do assessments for those kinds of businesses, which right. I think is phenomenal for helping contractors just like myself and many others that I know make sure they have the right person in place. So for the typical guy like me who doesn't have an assessment that I use, the way we do it is we do it through just conversation. We do it through what we know about you, what we know. We look at, do you have the technical skills, first of all, to do the job? Now, do you have the communication skills to communicate with a customer in there? So we base it off those two things. Are you technically sound? Can you communicate well? Those are the number two things we look for.
Okay. So you're saying a person's relationship skills are as important as their plumbing skills in a service industry.
100%. Absolutely. Your relationship skills are so important, but also it goes on to every other part of your life, not just as a plumber or a service person. I want to see who you are, your tonality, your body language, and the words that you use, specific words that you use, or are they good? Are they bad? Are they defeating? Are they empowering? Are they positive? Are they negative? I'm looking for all these little key phrases, words, things that you say that you just don't say in order to make sure I'm bringing on the right person to work in our service business. And then the biggest thing I always go back to is, are you willing to be trained to be better?
Right. I mean, I know we talked about the Jim Rohn saying, right, you work harder on yourself than you do on your job, right? I
Yes.
don't think a lot of people buy that, but I think it's absolutely true.
I think it's 100% true. We have always done training for our own employees for years and years and years. And they always loved it. They always had a lot of fun, but we also made them be uncomfortable is what we would do. And but the more uncomfortable they were, and the more they did it, the better they became. And that was the best part. I had a guy who worked for me for 3 months. And in 3 months, he said, Eric, he said, I learned more from you in 3 months than I did in 3 years working for the last company, because we provided training for our service technicians.
So what is that training? Can you give me specific? Because a lot of people listen to this podcast. What training you're talking about and how do you do it?
So our training is sales psychology, number one. We're teaching them how a customer thinks, what they do, what they don't do, how to create a connection when you walk up to the client's home. We're teaching them these basics. These are just basic skills that every service technician should know. We're teaching them, how to build out an estimate, how to present an estimate, how to present an invoice, how to just have basic conversations with the clients up to the point of to a high ticket close. If you're from a salesman perspective, we're going to help them close that. We're doing that through role play and weekly training sessions where we sit down as a group. We go through, we ask questions, we hear their feedback, and then we train based on their feedback, what they're afraid of. And we share our best practices, what I've used for all the years I've done this.
So I've been a business coach, 40 years, long time. What I found difficult is, knowing what to do is easy. Doing what you know is hard, right? So
what's easy to do is just as easy not to do. Yes.
Right. So what happens is you got this a contractor who's not like this, all this psychological crap. Why do I need that? Just go out and fix a damn drain, right? So how do you convince, and I'd love you to do it right now on this podcast. You got people listening here that are probably saying, Eric, that's all airy-fairy kind of stuff. I want good technicians. I want them to show up on time. I want to work hard. I want to put in 8 hours a day, work for 8 hours pay. I don't care about all psychological crap. It's just a bunch of airy-fairy goo-gaw. I want people that can, fix the toilet or get dirty or change your water heater. I don't really care about the psychological kind of training stuff. So how do you change that mindset?
Well, first of all, you don't lead with, you're talking about sales psychology. You're not going to lead with that. You're going to connect with them, first of all, as a service technician. And the quickest way for me to connect with is for them to understand that, hey, I've been exactly where you are, and I've done exactly what you've done over and over and over. So the biggest thing that we do is we want to take down that barrier that you're not a salesperson. We're not using the word sales psychology. This is just what I use for you to, because you and I understand this very well. We're just teaching them to become an educator of things that they know how to do. If they know how to install a water heater and they know how to install an expansion thing, how to find the problems to what has caused it to fail, we teach them to be educators, and we don't focus on so much the sales, using the word salesperson or sell. You're trying to sell more work. We just help them find more work, and we use just different language like that. If you're going to go into a house, I'm going to tell you, look, Paul, what I need you to do is when you walk into that house, I want you to create a connection with the customer first. When you walk up, I want you to look for something that you can connect with the customer with. I want you to find something to connect with them, whether it be their car, their house, landscaping, kids, pictures, something to connect with them, to get them talking about things that they like, to bring the barrier down. That's the first thing I want you to do.
The more they talk, the smarter you get, right?
100%. In my opinion, yes, because the more they talk, the more you know about them. Because all you're doing is having a conversation, and and then they're going to start telling you their stories, all about their life. Next thing you'll know about their wife, their kid, their dog, their grandparents. Someone died, someone this, someone that. I want them to go from that to looking for the problem that they came out to. Miss Jones, look, I know you came out. You had me come out to look at your water heater's not working. So let's go take a look at that. Then we want them to go together with the client to look at it together, because we want the client to see what's going on. It also gives you a chance to ask more questions and those kinds of things. Then we look for the why. I teach them, no matter what you do, you look for the why in everything that you're doing. Remember, this is all part of sales psychology. We're looking for the why,
Right.
but I'm not telling
Well,
you
the why is 90% of it, and how to is 10 usually, or something.
100%.
Like that, right?
So if we walk down there, we notice that the TMP is leaking on the water heater. Well, great. The TMP is leaking.
Now,
on
what is the TMP for me?
I'm sorry. The temperature pressure relief valve on the water heater.
Let's see, I didn't know what temperature suppression relief valve was. So
Right. So it'll start leaking at anything over 150 psi or 210 degrees. I want to know why. Well, why is it leaking? Most technicians, what they would do for years, they would just pull it out, turn the water off, drain the heater, pull the TMP out, shove a new one back in, but they never solved the problem. So we teach them to look for the why in everything that you do when you walk into home. The first thing we want to do is, Ms. Jones, look, I understand that the TMP is leaking. We can fix it, but we need to figure out why it's leaking, not just the fact we want to fix it. Because if we fix it right now and we don't figure out why it was leaking, then we're probably going to have to come back in a month or so. We teach them to find the why. We're going to go check the water pressure to the house. We're going to check this. We're going to check this. We're going to check this. So we teach them to find the why and everything to do. Why they've created a connection. Now the customer's okay and they're open for you to do more exploratory things in the home to find things. But it started with how you answered your phone. You create a connection on the phone when it was dispatched, when the technician showed up, and the connection they created. Now we're talking about the problem. Now we're looking at what they have, and we're looking at the why behind the problem, because the why behind the problem is what creates more revenue.
Okay, so I'm going to ask you one difficult question I have with plumbers. So how does hourly versus flat rate? Which do you recommend and why?
Flat rate all day long. So I look at the psychology of people. If I walked into your house and I say, hey, look, Paul, I'm going to charge you, our rates are about $165 an hour. The first thing I do to you is I put you in a state of anxiety. As soon as I tell you my rates are,
and the first thing I want to do to get rid of you as fast as possible, because it's costing me money, right?
Right. In your mind, you're thinking, okay, $165 an hour. I'm comparing you. Well, I only make $35 an hour in my job, and you're charging me $165 an hour. All I've done is put you in a state of anxiety because you don't know what it's going to cost, nor do you know how long it's going to take. That's the biggest problem I see with that. Then what happens when I walk out to my van, I get in my van, I get on my phone, and I'm calling the splash. The customer looks out the window. They have no idea who you're on the phone.
They think you're talking to your girlfriend, right? And they're paying $165 an hour, right?
All you've done is put them in a state of anxiety. Now, I can walk into that same house, and I can say, hey, Miss Jones, look, I've looked at your problem. It looks like you have this, that. We're going to charge you $271 to get this fixed, and this is all it's going to cost. This is what we charge, whether it takes us 15 minutes or the next 2 hours. She knows exactly what it's going to cost. She no longer cares, nor is her anxiety up here, because she knows what it's going to cost. It's so easy to sell flat rate versus hourly rate because the customer knows exactly what it's going to be.
I know flat rate ends up paying, I've worked with some guys like $250 an hour when you do all the math, right? It's crazy.
Well, when you do when you do the math, when you generate a flat rate price, you have to understand your cost of doing business. If you are a business owner, the number one thing that I teach you is how to figure out your cost of doing business. And we use software to do that. The first thing we want to teach you is your efficiency rate. How efficient are you as a service provider? I'll give you an example. I was working with a guy. He was charging an hourly rate for his services, a low rate. And I said, why are you charging? He goes, what's the industry average? Well, I said, great, but are you making money? He goes, no, we're losing $20,000 a month. So you're doing $3 million a year, losing $20,000 a month. On paper, it looks like good because, well, hey, I'm doing $3 million a year. Don't give a shit what you're doing. Are you keeping the money? Losing $20,000 a month. What we found was he's paying his guys for 8 hours every single day, all of his technicians, but he's only billing out 4 hours of his day for each technician. So what we know for a fact that the average service technician only bills out between 4 and 5 hours on any given day. You show up to the shop, you have this time, you're getting your paperwork, getting your information, you go to your first job, you've already got an hour in the day that you did not bill out. When you figure flat rate pricing, you need to be able to figure out what your efficiency ratings are for your service technicians, and all that has to go into it. Because if you looked at your total overhead costs, your marketing, your taxes, and we figure out all those things into your flat rate price as far as what you're going to charge on an hourly, and you're shocked when it comes to that $270 an hour. But now, $270 an hour is not what people think it is. It is more of it's task time. We are ready to go. We're sitting right. We're ready to get the job done. We have all of our tools there. If it takes 15 minutes to do a flapper, well, we're not charging $270 just to do a flapper.
Eric reminds me of I've heard the joke before with a guy this is sort of relevant. There's this big ship in, I don't know, let's say, Hawaii that's stuck, and it's costing, thousands and thousands of dollars an hour because it's stuck and it won't move, right? They hire this consultant to come over, right? They fly him over, blah, blah, blah. He looks around the ship and he goes, takes a hammer and goes, bam, right? And the ship starts working again. And he goes, that'll be $25,000. And he goes, excuse me, you charge me $25,000 to hit that pipe? Excuse me, I'll charge you $5 to hit the pipe and the rest of it's to know where to hit it.
Right, exactly right. And that is the key with flat rate services is you're paying. I always tell my guys, like, you have to see yourself as a professional when you walk into the house. You look at yourself as a professional, say that you're a professional, and we call them professionals because think about this. It took me 20,000 hours of working just to get my first master license. I think I'm pretty competent at doing that job if it takes me 20,000 hours to do something. And then owning the different businesses, I've owned businesses for probably, 30,000, 40,000 hours of being in business, of doing the business aspect of what I've done. So you're right. It's the fact that I knew exactly where to hit. That's what made the difference. And that's why it's worth the value of the money.
Right. Because for that $25,000, they made, $100,000 in freeing up the ship or whatever they did. Right. So the ROI. And I think also plumbers and dentists have a lot in common because they're dealing with people in a lot of anxiety. Right.
Yes. Yes. I mean, most people don't like dentists. I mean, my daughter loves dentists, but most people I know don't like dentists.
They don't look forward to go to the dentist. They don't look forward to calling the plumber, right? It's the way it is.
Because they know that it's going to create a stressful situation. They didn't probably plan or prepare for that emergency or that, whatever they're having to do.
And you can't give them Valium before they show up, right? So you're sort of...
Well, no, you're sort of screwed with that. But the one value you can give that client though is make sure you offer financing to that client. Give them some options. Give them the options of cash, check, charge, and financing, interest-free financing for 24 months. You can use that as your value for that client by offering that one simple thing, which is financing, because all you've done is taken that stress off their back because maybe they didn't have the cash, but they could pay it out over a 24-month.
And the problem with plumbing is you can't go without hot water. You can't have your toilet not flush. You can't have, it's mission life critical stuff.
100%.
It's not like it's a need to have, it's you have to have, right?
You have to have it 100%. It's a need-based business. So I always tell people, look, there are two different kinds of business. There are need-based businesses and want-based businesses. And in the trades, plumbing, heating, cooling, electrical, these are all need-based businesses for the most part. I would say 90-10 as need-based businesses that you have to have them. There's no way around it.
Right. Well, that makes it easier to let me convince somebody. So Eric, thanks a lot. It's been really valuable. I hope some people take, what you're hearing and put it to work. Tell me a little about how can people find you and get this good advice? Do you charge your first, you get the first hour free. I don't know what's your business model? How do you help people?
So we always do a discovery call with our clients. We just want them to give us a call. They can go to the plumbingbusinesscoach.com and they can just go on there, just fill out the form on there. Just send me a message. We'll send you a calendar. Then you can schedule a link with me. And we just always give them a free discovery call to see where they are. And then I'm the most gracious guy with these people, as I tend to, if I see that you have a problem, I'm going to maybe send you some software, send you some of this. I want you to start exploring what we can do for you. I always do that at no cost to our clients because I want them to get the best experience of working with me, just as I would if I was walking into a client's home.
So I do something. For example, when someone calls you, you're not going to sell them. You're going to coach them, right? You're going to start from day one. What's your problem? How can I help you? And actually sort of demo your service in a way so they'll see enough value in that hour to go, wow, I need more of this versus trying to sell me something I may or may not need.
Yes, 100%. I'll give you an example. I did a coaching call with two brothers that started their own business. And then I did 1 hour with them. And the next day they sent me a message because they were so afraid of charging the right prices. We fixed their pricing. We fixed their structure. We fixed how they're going to do it. All this free discovery call. The next day they sent me a message. They said, we just closed our largest job we've ever closed by listening and doing exactly what you said. And it was a great testament to me because I did that because I cared. Whether they ever hired me, it didn't make a difference. I still wanted to provide you the highest value that I possibly could.
So I think if you're in the plumbing business and you want to learn more, you'd sort of be crazy not to call you because the worst case is you're going to learn a lot, right?
I mean, right. The worst case, you're going to learn something. You'll get value out of every single call. When anybody has a call me, I make sure they get the highest value that I can possibly give based on what they're looking for and what they're wanting to accomplish. We can show them the way, and it's up to them to decide if they want to walk that way.
Right. Cool. Well, thanks, Eric. I really appreciate being on the show. It's a lot of good advice. And if you, I might tell you, if you're listening to this, you should give Eric a call and I would even say, even if you're a remodeling contractor, not always a plumber, because these principles that he's teaching apply to anybody in the service industry that's anybody where your clients walk into a house, they need to know what he has to teach.
100%.
Well,
thank you so much for having me.
Thank you. Okay. Have a great day. Thanks a lot, Eric. Appreciate you coming.
Thank you.